Hi, I'm Greg Duckett, Chair of the Greater Memphis Chamber Government Affairs Council. Today we are here to discuss the City of Memphis' current pension issue. The changing amount of the pension debt that the city government owes is alarming. Some say the city owes $300 million, others say $500 million. Some even estimate the total is over $700 million. The reality is, no matter the number, the City of Memphis is in deep debt due to its pension system. To make matters worse, the city does not pay the full amount annually needed to fund the pension system. What it is doing is equivalent to making the minimum payment on a credit card, and the balance only grows larger. In order to pay off this debt, each of the 244,538 households in the city would have to pay an additional $2,564 in taxes this year. The city would have to repeat this each year as the pension bill comes due. Today I have with me two business leaders who have agreed to join in a discussion about the City of Memphis's pension system. First is David Waddell with Waddell & Associates, and secondly we have Andre Folks with StartCo. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can either of you explain the current pension system that the City of Memphis has?
Sure, Greg. I think first you want to look at, well, what is a pension? When you think about it being a retirement plan where employees, after working a designated number of years, are applicable or are able to receive fixed payments for the rest of their life. If you look at the City of Memphis, we're looking at a situation of public safety government employees and general government employees working for 25 years being available to receive those types of benefits. I think it's important to understand the situation that we're in that you just described in terms of our liabilities outweighing our assets right now, and the gap is widening. If you look over the last 20 or 30 years, we're seeing people all across the country move away from pension systems. And there's a variety of factors that come into play. When you think at market fluctuations, when you think about life expectancies growing, and mismanagement of funds. And that's put us in that situation that we're in terms of our underfunded pension situation.
Yeah, the other thing to note is that the plan was written in 1948. And in 1948, the average life expectancy was about 64 years old. Those individuals who created the system, and as Andre described it, in my mind, it's really a salary for life kind of system, didn't anticipate that employees would be living to 80 years old, which they are today. And so that's an additional 16 years that people are receiving benefits in the current system that nobody ever expected to have to pay. So what we need to do is convert from this salary for life system to a 401k style system that most of us in the private sector are already used to. Back in the early 80s, 80% of retirement plans out there were very much like this salary for life system that Andre described. Today, in the private sector, less than 20% are, because people have recognized that the systems need to be modernized. It's just time for the City of Memphis to also modernize its system from this payment for life, salary for life system that was adopted in 1948 to a contribution system, a 401k system that most of us are used to today anyway. And there are some benefits, by the way, to the defined contribution 401k system. For one thing, the employees will vest after 6 months. It's not a promise to receive benefits in the future. It is a payment. It goes into an account. It is an asset for the employees. Furthermore, it's portable. If they leave, they can take that benefit with them. So it is a robust plan that is being proposed. It's just a shift from this payment for life system we've been in to a contribution system. And that change can be frightening for some, but in essence, it's still a very robust retirement plan.
Another question that I would want to present to you gentlemen is, if I'm not a city employee, then why should I care about this issue?
That's a big one. You want to hit it first?
Well, I think the key here is looking at the current situation. It's overwhelming our budget. Tax dollars are being consumed on an annual basis, and that's growing year after year. And it's causing other great ideas and opportunities not to be brought to the table. When we look at the current pension underfunded liability being the third largest item on our budget right now, and will very soon be, over the next 10 or 15 years, the #1 item, and then following that will be police and fire, we have to ask ourselves what goes by the wayside. And when we think about all the great things that have been happening in our community over the last 5 to 10 years, we would hate to see those stall or go away. When you think about parks and public betterment, when you think about economic development efforts that have just been launched in the last few years, redevelopment projects in Whitehaven and Overton Square, these are all things that could be stalled because of our budget being overwhelmed. And I think overall, we want to make sure our city is attractive to outside investment. And I think we're in a situation where there's a severe threat to that. If we have an unstable government system due to finances, that means people will not come here, businesses will not come here, and we can't grow into that city of choice that we always talk about.
Because I can't help myself, I looked today at all of the municipalities in the state of Tennessee, and I tried to benchmark Memphis against Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Nashville. The property tax rate in Memphis, Tennessee is 72% higher than that of Nashville. It's 62% higher of that of Knoxville, and it's 53% higher than that of Chattanooga. So the good news is, in trying to recruit businesses, Tennessee is a low tax state. The bad news is we are by far the most expensive city in the state, and trying to recruit businesses and keep businesses here is very hard. And if you look at job creation over the past 7 years, we've actually lost something like 32,000 jobs where these other municipalities are growing. These issues are not unrelated. So there are 11,000 people that participate in the pension plan. There are 700,000 people that live in the city. The pathway forward for the city is prosperity, and we can't get there simply through taxing and distributing and providing benefits, that are robust but really aren't spread across the entire population. So we as a city, to be competitive, have to get control of this issue. And again, in my judgment, we're not taking benefits away. What we're doing is we're changing the structure of the benefits to be more sustainable. And in that structure, it's going to be much easier to recruit businesses, et cetera. But reform is coming. If we do nothing, then either property taxes have to go to an infinite level, or we end up in bankruptcy court. So reform is coming. It can either be by our hand or by a decree.
I think both of you gentlemen have done an excellent job in responding to the first two questions, but part of what we want to do today is also get the support and help educate the public that it is important for them to contact their council members or our council members. And the way that they can do this is by going to the ReformMem.org website. Click on, there's a yellow button, click on that yellow button, and we need our citizens to contact our council members and let them know that we must reform and modernize our pension program for the city of Memphis. That's going to ReformMem, ReformMem.org, and clicking on that yellow button and responding to all of the council members and letting them know that now is the time for us to reform our pension system here in the city of Memphis. One of the other questions I would like to explore a little further, you talked, David, about a 401k type program. Could you give a little more definition regarding it as it relates to how it relates to a defined contribution plan?
Or a defined benefit plan, right. So a defined benefit plan is a salary for life. So right now, the average distribution out of the Memphis city's defined benefit plan is $32,000, right? And that will escalate over time as cost of living increases are voted to take effect. And that is for the average retiree retires at 52, I think, 62 within the plan. 52, I think. And so that is a promise that you'll continue to receive 75% of your last year's salary, or whatever the math is, for the remainder of your life. It's a promise. Now, some promises you can't keep. And I think what we've all recognized is that the promises that have been made financially are unsustainable. So that path cannot be sustained. Therefore, how do you provide benefits to retirees that we have some certainty of being able to sustain? The nice thing about the defined contribution plan is that the city and the taxpayers will know exactly what the liability is. With the defined benefit plan, we really don't know. If the retirees suddenly, we have a medical breakthrough, get to live to 150, then they would theoretically receive benefits and salaries until they reach the age of 150. And so it's impossible truly to know what that unfunded liability is. Today we know it's large. The odds are it'll be much larger in the future. By shifting to a defined contribution plan, we'll have some certainty around understanding what the contribution from the city needs to be. And I would say the employee has the confidence to know that they will receive these benefits in the future.
I think to add on to that, if you've been working for 10 years or more, you will not be affected at all by the switch to a 401k type system. And also for all of them moving forward, you're talking about a 33% increase in terms of contributions, where you'll see the city matching at an 8% scale along with the employee. So these are all good things that we think can catalyze and move in terms of benefits to those who are these government employees.
Well, following up on that, you indicated that if you have been with the city for 10 years or more, it can basically be portable. But the question that I have is, what happens if I'm a current retiree of the city of Memphis and they change the current pension program?
So you're vested as a current retiree and nothing changes. And so as Andre said, if you're vested in the current system, nothing changes. What changes is for those who are unvested, and they will transition into the defined contribution plan, but the benefits that they've accrued to date, they will still have. It'll just shift from the defined benefit structure to the defined contribution structure. So for current retirees, for those currently working but vested in the defined benefit plan, nothing changes.
So with the catch-all then, state again, why is this good for Memphis?
It's good for Memphis because it puts our financial foundation at least on a sustainable path. The path that we're on now is not sustainable. It's good for Memphis because businesses need some certainty in their operating environment to make decisions. So I have two businesses here. I have a couple of kids here. I have a couple of pieces of property here. It's difficult to do long-range forecasting without having any understanding of what the tax situation in the city of Memphis is going to be going forward. We need to give businesses some certainty so that they can do long-range planning on their own futures, as well as businesses we're trying to recruit into the city. So it's good for Memphis from a competitive standpoint because it adds some certainty into the equation.
And I think to add to that, it allows us the opportunity to control our own affairs. We don't want to have it where we have Nashville coming in dictating what we should do with our pension situation. There's been too many times over the past many years where we have seen a passive strategy come back to bite us, and we would hate to see that happen again here in terms of giving us the opportunity to grow and prosper in our community.
That's an excellent point, especially given some legislation that's recently been approved in Nashville if we don't address this issue. I do want to come back to those of you watching the webinar. I misstated the website that you need to go to. I said ReformMem.org. It is actually ReformMem.com. That's ReformMem.com. We need you to reach out and go to that site and communicate with our council members, because our council members listen when we talk to them, and the only way that they will know our voice is if we communicate that voice. So please go to ReformMem.com so that our council members will hear our position and our voice on this issue. Are there other issues that either of you want to discuss as it relates to the pension reform issue?
I want to go back and just underscore what you just described. This is not going to go on the ballot. The citizens of Memphis are not going to have the opportunity to vote on whether to reform this, vote to not receive a potentially 20 to 30% increase in property taxes. They're not going to have that opportunity because it's going to be decided at the city council. So the ballot box that we have as citizens is www.reformmem.com. If you want to vote on what is happening, the only way to do it is to go to the website, click on it, and let the council members know your position, because it will not show up on the ballot. And by the way, the polling has showed that if it did show up on a ballot, the majority of the city would vote for reform. However, since it's not going to show up on the ballot, we've got to be proactive. We've got to go to that website and we've got to express our preferences there. And that website's going to go and pepper the city council people with opinions, and that is the ballot box. So if you care, that's where you got to go.
Yes, we can't say that enough. Andre?
Well, I think to echo David's comments, I mean, we're talking about some decision making over a few thousand citizens of our community that could have an impact over everyone in our community. And so I think it's very important that we participate by sending those emails in. Small moves can make a big difference here for our community.
Yep. As you communicate and have conversations throughout the community, have you encountered any real pushback in terms of the average citizen on the street saying, yes, I'm in favor, or no, I'm not in favor of reforming our pension system?
Absolutely. A lot of folks don't really understand everything that's going on, but the few that I've talked to are in favor because they're thinking with a business mind. They're thinking of how do we trim the fat with regards to our budget, not just with this issue, but with many issues. And any time that we can come in there and figure out ways to improve our financial books in terms of city government, then they're all for it. So I've been hearing a lot of folks who are in favor of this, and I have not been hearing a lot of folks who are not in favor of this.
Those that I've talked to that are not in favor of this are simply misinformed, right? There is misinformation in the marketplace that what we're trying to do is destroy hard-earned retirement benefits and shift that to the benefit of somebody else. That's not true at all. If we were starting from zero and the recommendation was that we install a retirement system that's a defined contribution system where the city will make an 8% contribution, the employee will make an 8%, that's a 16% savings rate. That's a robust system, right? So if we were starting from zero, people would be having parades about how great this plan is. But because we're changing, change in itself instills fear. But the reality is, again, this is a very robust system. So I think there's some misinformation out there, but also to the Chamber's credit and to the media's credit, I think we've done a pretty good job, and this is part of that, in getting the message out correctly. And the correct message is we're shifting from a robust plan to another robust plan. It's just a different structure. So the only anxiety I've perceived in the marketplace is just related to misinformation.
Good. Again, I want to encourage those that are watching this webinar, please go to ReformMem.com and click on the yellow button and tell your council members that we need to reform our pension program. And the way that we can do it is if they hear from us, which is part of why we are having this webinar today, so that we can, A, educate you on the importance of this issue, but B, get you encouraged to contact the council members so that they know this is an important issue to us, so that they in turn will vote to update the City of Memphis's pension program. One of the things that I have heard when out in the community and talking about pension reform is the issue of, well, if we change the pension, then it's going to have an adverse impact on our ability to recruit individuals to be employees with the City of Memphis. I think it would be important if either of you could help dispel that to those that are watching the webinar.
Well, I thought about that. You know, going back to my Nashville's tax rate being, half of ours, and Chattanooga and Knoxville, those municipalities seem to be doing rather well. And the municipalities around the country that have shifted to the defined contribution system already have put their cities on a more sustainable path, and they appear healthy overall. Let us not forget, too, that the unemployment rate in Memphis is a great deal higher than the nation at large. And so all jobs are good jobs in the city of Memphis. And I'm not sure that those who are applying for those jobs are going to determine whether they take the job or not simply by the robustness of the retirement plan. So I think that is, again, a piece of misinformation that in practicality is an untruth.
And I think to add to that, you have to ask yourselves, what are the reasons why they're looking to work for government? Is it to improve and affect change in terms of economics and community development? And if you were to look at where we're going currently, that would be taken away from them. With this reform, it would allow to have more foresight, more opportunity, more dollars spent on great things that are being built in our community, which they could be a part of, whereas the reverse, it would eliminate quite a few of those things, and they would basically just have a job that they show up to.
Yeah. Another issue that I have encountered when we talk about pension reform, some people, going back, David, to your comment of being misinformed, some people on the street will think that, well, pension reform for the city, that's going to affect me, and they're not even a city employee. So when we talk pension reform, who does this affect?
It affects all of us, because if let's take the alternative case. If we don't do this, then what happens is feeding the unsustainable pension system is going to eclipse our ability, as Andrea stated, to do anything else. To put that in perspective, right now, city revenues are $600 million. We spend $250 million on police. We spend $150 million, $40 million more or less on fire, which leaves $200 million for everything else. We need to spend $100 million right now, today, on this pension system. We're spending $20 million. The gap is $80 million. In 15 years, we go from $100 million to $250 million, which means that'll be the largest line item in the city budget, right? Completely unsustainable, will eclipse our ability to do anything. If we got to that moment today, we're not going to fill in any potholes. We're not going to clip any grass. We've got to shut down the libraries. We got to shut down the golf courses. We got to lay off a bunch of firefighters, policemen, city employees. I mean, the pension is cannibalizing our ability as a community to do anything else. And over time, at the margin, that will make us uncompetitive. It'll make us an unattractive place to live. And it just can't go forward the way it is.
And I think if you look at that, we're already on thin ice as a community, right? If you go back a couple of years, being the most poor city in America, looking at last year being the most unemployed city, this year being the most economically segregated city, we're already on thin ice. We can't afford to have hiccups now that take us backwards. We need to move forward in the right direction.
Yeah. Again, I want to encourage all of the listeners and those viewing the webinar to please go to ReformMem.com and click on that yellow button and send a message to all of the city council members to let them know that our current pension program for the city of Memphis must be reformed and modernized because, as you have heard from these two gentlemen today, we cannot afford to continue with the existing system. With that, I will turn back to the two gentlemen, Andre and David, for closing remarks before we close out the webinar.
You know, I go back to the fact that I wish this was going to be at the ballot box because I know how that would result. I think the citizens of Memphis recognize that the city has got to live within its means, and we've got to do everything we can to promote, you know, private sector business creation and business recruitment so that we can have more jobs, because the pathway out of all the city's problems is growth. The pathway out of all the city's problems is not more robust retirement and health care benefits for, you know, people who deserve it, but it can't just be the focus of city revenues. We need to focus city revenues on how to create the venues for prosperity in the future as well. And it's really a balancing act. But the citizens of Memphis need to engage in that conversation. And the way to engage in that conversation is to go to www.reformmem.com and let the council people know. And I'm excited to have done the webinar. I hope this can be a weekly thing. Maybe the chamber could talk about that. Because there are other things that need to get discussed as well. We talked today specifically about the retirement benefits, but the health care for life benefit is going to become a topic of conversation as well. And I'm sure we'll be sending out more information related to that. So grateful for the opportunity to talk about it, excited that the community is interested, and Reform Mem is the way to carry on the conversation with the council members.
Yep.
And I think for me, it's quite simple. In order to move a community forward, you have to have effective public-private partnership. And there's no way that we can have that without the city of Memphis being a big piece of that public partnership. And so, you know, we ask people out in the community to think about the vision that they have for their city to move forward. And it is being threatened right now. It is a reality. We're not exaggerating. We just want people to take that into consideration, and they can, again, take some simple steps and send those emails in and push this to our city council members.
Thank both of you for spending time with us this afternoon, and I want to encourage again, as you have the listeners, to go to ReformMem, ReformMem.com, and let your voice be heard. Thank you all.